rail passengers face fresh travel misery today. 13,000 members of the train drivers' union Aslef walk out in the first planned strike of this week.
It's been claimed that the union is targeting key events, with concert-goers, racing punters, foodie fans bracing themselves for travel chaos, with further strikes up to the weekend and on Saturday, including a separate walkout by RMT members, which is also set for Friday. Well,
Aslef's General Secretary Mick Whelan joins us live from the picket line in Newcastle. Good morning to you. Thanks for joining us this morning. I mean, this has been deliberately timed, hasn't it? When we look at the things that are on, it's, you know, half-term, we've got the Epsom Derby, we've got the FA Cup final, various big concerts going on. This has been timed for maximum disruption.
That's not true, actually. What we had was a rather deceitful deal containing all our red lines that were destined to fail, and carrying out the Tory legislation, we took the strike action exactly 14 days from that happening, and then we spread the load over our rest day and roster patterns so we don't hit the same people all the time. I don't think there's a day or a weekend where there isn't an event that's going to be impacted at some point.
But you said, Mick, a few weeks ago when you struck on the day of Eurovision, you said, I don't watch Eurovision, that it's coincidental. But we all know that you're a big Chelsea fan. You saw your team beat Liverpool in the FA Cup final last year. You saw them lose to Leicester the year before. I mean, there's no way you didn't know that it was FA Cup final this weekend. Back in January, there were strikes on the third round day, but Manchester fans all coming down to London. You know, are you really claiming that you didn't think about it being FA Cup Saturday?
Yes, and also we didn't strike on Eurovision final day, we struck on the Friday. And as I was unaware there was actually semi-finals Eurovision, I was being quite honest at that moment in time. Also, people seem to forget they shut the whole railway on the West Coast last year, so Liverpool fans couldn't get down to the FA Cup final. Well, that's OK then, is it?
Yeah, but I'm allowing you to claim on the Friday you didn't know there was a semi-final or the build-up to Eurovision. I'm just saying to you, you knew the FA Cup final was a big weekend because your team's been in it the last 2 years, and therefore you would have known when you looked at that date. I mean, surely sustaining public support at this stage of a strike is so important. The nurses have managed to sustain majority public support. Isn't it risky for you to decide to choose this particular weekend and that particular day, Cup final day, when it's two Manchester teams, or are you not worrying so much about public opinion?
We have vast public support, and as you know, there is mass strike action both in the private and the public sector everywhere at this moment in time, whether it be teachers, civil servants, NHS or elsewhere. And we still retain that support. I don't think there's a family in the country currently that's not impacted by some sort of strike action. We're not deliberately targeting certain events.
But when you talk about public support, I just want to bring to your attention the latest figures, because we've got this poll by Ipsos of the British public on the rail strikes, and it's supported by only 1 in 3, 32%. That's the last figures that we've got. That's a 7% decline from February. So I'm not sure you can claim that's vast public support, can you? It's declining.
Well, normally when we have any form of public transport strike action or disruption, we've less than 5%, so we still have public support. The reality for us is that we don't want to be here. This is a Westminster problem. We don't have problems in Scotland or Wales or in freight or open access or in TfL or elsewhere. We have a problem with Westminster. We've done 14 pay deals the last 12 months. We were working for 16 private companies that are declaring share dividends, right, and paying out millions to their shareholders, but not paying the people that employed them. So after 4 years without a pay rise, the only way we can articulate our voice is to come out and take action and raise the profile of what we're doing.
So the latest offer, the most recent offer from the Rail Delivery Group, involved a 4% increase in 2022, another 4% rise in 2023. There are conditions attached to that. So that would take the average driver's salary from 60,000 to 65,000. You're saying that's not good enough? Because a lot of people would look at that figure and think, well, that sounds like a good salary.
Well, I do like the dissembling and deceit from the RDG and the government. We sat down with them to find a way forward to get an offer, and then we were going to put other things into a separate set of talks, and then they wanted everything included in the second year. So they wanted hundreds of % of conditions and productivity for nothing for a 20% pay cut. And they knew what our red lines were because we told them, and they deliberately put them in the deal. If anybody doesn't want a resolution to this, I suggest you talk to Mr Harper and his acolytes.
Can I just ask you then about Mr Harper? It's clear in the case of the NHS actually the government's been working hard to get a deal. They've actually got a lot of the unions to come on side now with the pay offer that they put. There's an ongoing issue with the nurses rejecting that deal, but many other unions have signed up. The government did offer more money. In the case of the railways, the delivery group, the government, Mr. Harper, they don't seem at the moment to be beating your door down to give another offer to get into more talks. They're not talking about it publicly a great deal. What do you think is going on? Do you think that they are just not being competent, or have they decided that the longer this goes on, the harder it's going to be for you to sustain public support?
I haven't seen Mr. Harper since before Christmas. I've only met him once, a meet and greet, and I've only seen the Rail Minister once this year on January the 6th. But the people we've been dealing with, we sat down in good faith, we told them what the red lines were, and they deliberately put it into the deal to make it fail. My view is, at this moment, they don't want a resolution.
Why is that, Mick?
I really don't know what their end game is. We don't want to be on strike. The people behind me on the picket line don't want to be losing money. We just want to get back to doing our day job. I want to go back to complaining about the lack of investment.
Yeah, I mean, what's it going to take to resolve this? Because at the moment, the fear is it's killing off.
Give us a pay deal.
It's killing off the train service, because when people are thinking, oh, they're not going to rely on the trains because they fear that they'll be disrupted, that it'll end up that people don't want to use trains.
And that's unfortunate, but we need to rebuild that base. But in between the strike days, we have seen the footfall come back, and some companies are running at 100% or more of passenger foot levels than they had before the pandemic. So the railway is going in the right direction, and that's despite the government cutting timetables in some areas to 70%.
So your strategy is basically to maintain, to step up action over the summer, to try and force round the table people who, at the moment, you think don't want to do a deal.
Well, it's quite clear they don't want to do a deal. I've been, doing this for an awful long time, and I've been in many, many negotiations. And the fact that we managed to do 14 pay deals in the last 12 months elsewhere tells me about the willingness of other people to do a deal.
I guess the thing I would just observe is that normally in a strike, when you're succeeding with the strike, the other side want to do a deal. Is their judgment, do you think, at the moment, that you are not sustaining public support? Is that why they seem to be walking away?
No, I don't think. I think it's some sort of ideological dogma. It's a Westminster problem. I think maybe it's the government's got unfinished business with the rail unions. I really don't know what they want to do or why. But what I do know is they're not seeking a resolution to this, and they're being slightly disingenuous with what they're putting out to the press.
Feels like this weekend is not going to be the government's problem. It's going to be the problem of loads of people who can't get to half-term weekend sporting events, including all those Man U fans.
Look, we want the public on our side. We don't want to be hurting the travelling public. But there isn't a day when you have a strike where you don't hit a pop concert or something happens or affect people's lives going to work, to their hospital appointments. And we're just deeply saddened by that. We represent ordinary working people. We want a resolution to this. But as hard as we're trying to get a resolution, it seems that other parties involved in the dispute do not want that resolution. Now, we want them to come to the table in realistic terms. And when they do so, there'll be a quick resolution.
OK, Mick Whelan, Aslef General Secretary, thanks for joining us this morning.